It's 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific. I'm Ali Vitale in for Ana Cabrera, reporting from Washington. Right now, Pam Bondi is being grilled by lawmakers behind closed doors about the Epstein files. Less than 2 months after she was fired as Attorney General, Bondi is back in the hot seat as part of the House Oversight Committee's investigation into deceased sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein. After serious friction between Republicans and Democrats over this appearance, it'll be a closed-door interview and won't be videotaped. Cameras are not, though. Democrats say they're going to press Bondi on the sloppy rollout of the Epstein files. But the tough questions started before the interview even began. In a remarkable moment just a short time ago, a group of Epstein survivors peppered Oversight Committee Chair James Comer with their own questions ahead of Bondi's session. I want to play just some of that exchange.
These people cannot be brought in under transcribed interviews. Can you ensure that they would please be brought in under oath?
Well, if you lie to Congress, it's a felony. So it's you know, we're bringing them in. We're bringing people in that have never been brought in before.
Survivors' names over and over and over were exposed, yet we see time and time again perpetrators' names have been redacted when they shouldn't have been. Well, are we going to get some answers about that?
I hope so. Those are the questions we're going to ask. And you know, we're doing this. We want justice for the survivors.
Stunning to see them confront Comer themselves. And then just moments ago, a major update in another Trump DOJ controversy. This, a judge temporarily blocking that nearly $1.8 billion settlement fund that would have allowed taxpayer dollars to go potentially to violent January 6th insurrectionists. We've got a lot to cover. Thankfully, we've got my colleague, MS Now congressional reporter Michael Schnell, outside of Bondi's interview room. Our senior investigative reporter Carol Lenig is in New York. Here with me on set, MS Now legal analyst and former principal deputy assistant AG Mary McCord and former federal prosecutor Ankush Kardori. Thanks to all of you for being here. Michael, we'll go to you first because you're right outside the room where it's all happening. It was a long road for the committee to get here. Can you walk us through what it took? And now that we are at this moment, what's a success look like for those members of the committee that actually pushed for this to happen in the first place?
Yeah, Ali, it's been a nearly 3-month road to actually get here and get lawmakers behind closed doors with Pam Bondi to discuss the Epstein files and the Epstein investigations. It really began in earnest in the beginning of March when there was that remarkable vote in the House Oversight Committee to issue a subpoena for Pam Bondi. It was unexpected, and the most unexpected part was that 5 Republicans came on board to put it over the finish line. She was then issued that subpoena in the middle of March to appear on April 14th. That was the key day that folks were looking forward to finally be able to question Pam Bondi. But then in a twist on April 2nd, that's when President Trump said that Pam Bondi would be leaving her post as Attorney General, essentially muddying the waters and leaving a lot of folks wondering whether or not she would still have to appear. There was an argument by the DOJ that she no longer needed to appear because she was subpoenaed as Attorney General and not in her personal capacity. There was a quip over that between the two parties. And then on April 29th, that is when we saw House Democrats on the Oversight Committee prepared to move forward with contempt charges against Pam Bondi. And just at that same moment, the committee had announced that she would be appearing today on May 29th. So as you mentioned, they are currently behind closed doors. This got underway a little after 9 a.m. this morning. The question of what does success look like, I think will really depend on which Pam Bondi is behind closed doors right now. If she's cooperating and answering questions, we know that members on both sides of the aisle want answers about that rollout, the redactions, why some documents have still been withheld. But if it's the Pam Bondi that we saw in previous public hearings where she's combative and sort of throws insults back at members of Congress who are asking her questions, I don't know if this could be as successful as lawmakers are hoping.
Yeah, and I've been asking members all day, what are they trying to get out of this? It's the topics that Michael mentioned. It's also the Ghislaine Maxwell deal that saw her transferred to a minimum security prison. A lot on the table here. But, Carol, it's not just the point that Bondi is physically in front of the committee. It's the way in which she's there. She's not under oath, not being filmed. It's being treated as a voluntary transcribed interview, despite the subpoena that touched all of this off. So can you talk about the ways that that changes the stakes of what Bondi can or will say, or really what she can and will dodge?
Well, it's interesting because while Representative Comer made this claim that, you know, she lying to Congress is still a crime, the worry especially among survivors and others who are watching this testimony is that this compromise means it would be harder to charge, actually, Pam Bondi if she said something that wasn't true. It's not impossible, but it would be harder because she's not under oath. It's a transcribed interview. It's not impossible, but it does change the stakes slightly. And I will say that I really appreciate how Michael laid out how we got here. And I want to underline one element of that for you, Allie, which is, and for your viewers, is this was a compromise because House Democrats were going to basically planning to hold Bondi in contempt. And the only way to sort of get her in the seat, if you will, was to make these concessions because the Democrats aren't in power, the Republicans are. And while Comer keeps saying, we want these answers too, the Democrats have much more at stake here. They want to know factual answers to how this rollout happened, how in the world certain redactions happened that were questionable. Most importantly, why the FBI and Justice Department officials were asked to flag for the team whenever Trump's name was mentioned. That's pretty unusual, and they want information because they want to purpose it, right? They want to leave this hearing, or forgive me, this interview. They want to leave that interview with facts that they can use in campaign and on the road about the Trump administration's handling of this, and ultimately, even, they would argue, the bungling of this. Donald Trump doesn't disagree. I mean, part of the reason he fired Pam Bondi as Attorney General is he felt she wasn't, both effecting the implementing the retribution strategy he really was seeking, but also that he felt she had bungled this rollout and made him look bad in the Epstein files matter.
I mean, the unforced error even of saying she had a list of Epstein's clients on her desk and then having to roll that back and say, actually, no, I didn't. That's part of this. But, Mary, I think it's also notable that Assistant Attorney General Harmeet Dillon and another Department of Justice attorney are in that room. It's something I actually asked Congressman James Walkinshaw, one of the Democrats who's in there right now questioning Bondi about this morning. I want to just play for you, or rather, he told me that he saw this as an intimidation tactic. And I wonder if you agree with that or what you think the role of DOJ officials being in that room is, and if there's anything that's normal about that for Pam Bondi, who is a former attorney general. And my sources on the committee are very much leaning into the fact that she is there in her personal, private citizen capacity today.
And I assume that means, but correct me if I'm wrong, she also has a personal private attorney with her in addition to Harmeet Dillon. So it is unusual. Obviously, in a personal capacity, and a Department of Justice attorney cannot be representing her that way. That would be a conflict because the DOJ attorney has their allegiance to the department, right, and not to representing this person in their personal capacity. I assume that Harmeet and the other DOJ attorney are there because they want to be able to object if they believe that Pam Bondi is saying something that would compromise any DOJ interest, maybe be confidential or privileged information or something like that. Whether that's legitimate or not is a different question.
Yeah.
But it still is unusual. I mean, usually there are things that would have been worked out in advance, I think, between DOJ counsel and Bondi's personal counsel about where the lines are. But I'm not at all surprised that this DOJ would want to have people in the room.
Also important to note that DOJ apparently has made the agreement with the committee. And when Carol brings up the power of being in the majority, certainly this is one of the key parts of it, Ankush, is the fact that Comer really runs the show here. Even as 5 of his Republican colleagues voted to subpoena and bring Bondi in, he's the one who's able to say, OK, what does it look like to enforce a subpoena and how far am I willing to go in what it takes to get Bondi in there? So that's why she's here for a transcribed interview. But another thing Carol said bears drilling down on, this idea that Democrats are trying to get as many facts as they can so that they can take this investigation to a new place and also potentially do that if they are able to take back the majority themselves and then run the show on a committee